klubben alltid pakker. Noe sprit og damer. Hvor skal det gå? Jeg fester mandag, tirsdag, onsdag. Drikk på torsdag, fredag, lørdag og søndag. Skjer det, ja, hodet koker. Jeg har ikke noe mer plass. Nei, jeg har ikke noe mer plass. Er hodet fylt med masse tequila.
This is russevan, and there are lots of russevans in Norway each May. And it comes, the celebration, which is actually unique for Norway. Often they have a cap. What's this all about? Well, it is a kind of time-out experience. During the Russe time, you can break norms. That's a key element in this experience. You can break norms, you can break rules. As a sociologist, I will try to use a kind of toolbox we use in sociology, some concepts to let us understand this phenomenon better. And very often we would start with gender and social class, which are two basic variables regulating very much our lives. Some of you have probably taken part in something that has some similarities, namely in Norwegian, utdrikningslaget, the Stag Party. And we will now come to the gender dimension here. This is not an actual stag party. It is a stage made by some photographers. But it was regarded as a kind of cliché way of having fun for males. As you see, they are going to a strip club, and we have interviewed quite a few men who went to a strip club to celebrate these few last days before marriage comes and new rules apply. And you see these guys, they're very much fun. The female stripper is lying on her back, and they have put banknotes on her body, and they feel a kind of right to touch her body and touch her private parts and stuff like that. And probably this is meant to be fun. But I suppose that quite a few of you don't think it's that fun. Perhaps more women than men think it's not that fun. So there is a gender dimension here. If you discussed this with these guys, they will say, of course we didn't mean it, it's ironic and stuff like that. But even irony survives in a kind of a system of meanings. So this was a made-up photo. But actually, I got a photo from a real female stag party taken some weeks ago in Oslo by someone I know. And look at the difference. Look primarily at the gender dimension here. This is taken in Frognerparken. There are some girls, young women. The bride is in the center. And she has the bride veil on her head, and they have very much fun. But you see, there is something going on here. They don't break the same norms as these males did. Of course, people who are passing by, they understand that something strange and funny is going on, and they are very much united, actually, in this ritual. I know one of them, and she thought it was very, very fun. So, pay attention to this gender dimension here, because you also find that very much in the Russe celebration. This is the first basic variable you as a sociologist are looking at. So what happens in this celebration? Well, if you go into the regional sites for the Russe celebration in different parts of Norway, you will find that there are a very clear set of rules that you may break. It may be up to 100. And these rules comes then with the right to put an object in your Russe cap. So here you have such a Russe cap, lots of objects in this Russe cap. And if you know the code here, you will understand that all these items in the cap, they is a documentation of that you have broken a quite specific norm. So if you have a kid who is Russ, you could in the nighttime go and take a look, and you will understand and check up with this system of rules, the local system of rules, and you check out what your kid have done during the last few days. So let me take a few examples. The golden pine cone, it is symbolizing to have had sex in a tree. So you climb up in a tree with a sexual partner, and you have a witness, and if everything's accepted, then you could put a gullkongla in your hat. We interviewed this guy who was very proud because he had managed to take that, lots of prestige in his system. But the problem was that it's quite difficult, of course, to come up and technically difficult to have sex in a tree. So he had fallen down and broken his leg. So he had to celebrate with leg in plaster. But it also, the story went around and people were, wow, you know why he has broken his leg. So that was quite funny, he thought, and it was quite prestigious, actually, among the boys in this system. Gender at play. So let me take one that I personally think is quite funny, because it is called kamferdropse in Norwegian, the camphor candy. And as you all know, the camphor candy is almost not in use in Norway anymore. If it is in use, probably some woman over 70, 80, 90 years use it. And that symbolizes actually to have made out, tongue-kissed with a person 60 years or more. So then you can have the camphor candy in your cap. So I asked these guys we were interviewing who wanted to be kind of bad boys, gullkongla was very prestigious, and I asked, okay, but would you do the camphor candy? And they said, no, that's a bridge. This one guy said, that's a bridge too far for me. Because, of course, it's so disgusting, the idea to kiss a person who is more than 60 years. So let's then go to a knot that is quite popular among girls. That is the shoelace. Then you have to crawl a long distance on your knees, basically in the road in the city you live. And here you have some girls who are crawling up from Karl Johan, the main boulevard in Oslo, up to the castle. And you see, this is very funny, and it has some similarities with the female Stag Party, if you see that. It's not associations to sex, or breaking no serious norms, but they have much fun. And we asked some boys who could sort of discuss these different knots that it's called. Would you do the shoelace? No, that's for sissies, that's for girls and stuff like that. So that's not indicating gender of the type that's most popular among some of these boys. But they had very much fun. So how should the boys learn what has high value here? Well, the Russe songs are extremely important. We can also say that the hardcore Russ celebration is most popular in the wealthiest families in Norway, because, for instance, to buy a bus, it's very expensive, up to 1.5 million kroner. So we must say that the most intense celebration comes in the elites, in particular in the economic elites of society. And it's also in these areas that you find the highest alcohol consumption in Norway. I just now got the data from the large data material. And the main finding, if you look at Oslo, is actually very interesting. And this is the first time I'm going to show these figures. This is the level of alcohol consumption used in the different areas of Oslo. And you see, the darker the color, the higher the alcohol consumption in the group 16 to 18 years old. And you see, it's the wealthiest parts, western parts of Oslo. For those who are familiar with Oslo, it's Vestraker, Ullern, and Frogner. And you see, those areas we quite often are a bit concerned about. the eastern part of Oslo, Groruddalen, down Søndre Nordstrand, where people think about gangs and problems. And these are also areas with a much lower level of education, much lower level of income, more people outside the ordinary job market. You see that they drink much, much less. So how did we get this story? That the Russ celebration, the most intense version of it, is most popular among boys and boys from the very elites of our society. You find some elements of the same pattern also outside Oslo. But Oslo is interesting because it's a kind of lab for social differences. The city is extremely divided. So why did we end there? Well, to do that, we need to not only use sociology, but also history. For where did it all start? Quite a few of you perhaps know that, but it started when we first got our university in Norway. That means 1811. And the first years, there were only 15 to 20 students that were given the right to study there. And where did they come from? Of course, from the very, very elites in Norway, from the families with lots of economic power, but also the families with political powers. But how did these students behave, these 15 to 20 students that were taken up in the time period between 1814 and 1825? Well, they had the right 2 or 3 days before they entered university to take part in a ritual that was called cornua depositoris. It had to be Latin. That's much more prestige in Latin, of course, at that time. And if you see the last 3 letters there in the second word, cornua depositoris, rus comes from that ritual. What kind of ritual was it? It was a ritual that was used in Copenhagen, where we previously had studied, in Paris, in Berlin, in also, I think, Cambridge and Oxford. So to enter this stage with a university, you were allowed to drink hard, to fight in the streets, in the pubs, that was called kneiper at the time. And they could break glasses and break windows. We have very good police reports documenting this. And I must say that it's quite interesting that they were acting out even much more than these guys I've talked about from the upper elites today. So it started in the elites, and it has actually continued to be a kind of elite ritual. Of course, many people take part now, but it has probably been protected by the elites. Very many from this area in Norway, where you have the hardest celebration. They have parents who also were Russ some 20 or 30 years ago. And I think that's one of the main reasons why it has survived in this manner. We haven't had so much criticism towards this ritual. And when I was preparing this talk, I remembered a play I had seen by William Shakespeare, which was called Henry V. It's a very nice line where the king says that we are the makers of manners. He and his court around him, set the rules of what's allowed and what is not allowed. So I think we can stop there. This ritual was made by an elite. And it comes with, obviously, very much fun, but it also comes with some considerable problems. And if you have a kid who's going to be Russ in a year or 2 or 3, perhaps you should take a discussion when you come home or tomorrow about these elements. For instance, if gullkongla is the way to sort of celebrate this. Thank you very much.